Five Nights to Remember is a FNAF Fangame that originally released in 2015 that honestly wasn't a very known FNAF Fangame by the general FNAF community. However, it was notable for one thing. It was notable for kickstarting what I consider a full-on quote-unquote genre quote-unquote of FNAF Fangames, those being the Fredbear Fangames. Fangames attempt to explore the holy concept that is Fredbear's Family Diner. Ever since its initial mention in the official FNAF series, this location we never properly got to see or experience unless you count FNAF 4 has always cued the imagination of a lot of FNAF fans. That's why there tends to be a lot of fangames about this location in particular. How do they portray Fredbear and Spring Bonnie? How do they portray the story? It's always something a lot of people look forward to see when it comes to these games. Some of these games can be pretty bad, but some of these can be pretty good or even great. Now, for a game that basically kickstarted such a notable type of fangame, it was a matter of time it gained relevance again in the current day. That's when the Radiance team came in and remade the game for 2024. We're going to be talking about the remake of the game today for this fangame review. Without further ado, let's get straight into this. Five Nights to Remember follows the player being a typical night watchman for a newly opened Fredbear's Family Diner location as an effort to turn around the public perception of the brand that is Fazbear Entertainment. You're given cameras, a music box in one of those cameras, a flashlight, and a cassette tape, which doesn't have a working rewind button, forcing the player to conserve how much you use the cassette. There are multiple characters within this neat little game. There's Fredbear, who will make his way to the left of your office, and once he gets to your left door, you can use the flashlight on him for a bit as an effort to conserve the cassette tape. Then when he gets in the office, you can use the tape. There's also Spring Bonnie, who basically acts the same as Fredbear, except he comes from the right. There's also the character HIM, also known as Cake Bear, of course based on the Freddy-like character in the Give Cake to the Children minigame from FNAF 2. He's the character you have to wind the music box for, just as simple as that. Keep it all wounded. Then there's the Vision animatronics, who are basically Freddy in the game. Vision Freddy will appear at one of the office doorways, which while he's there, you must not flash him. For Vision Bonnie, he'll appear on the monitor, which when he does, you must look for him on one of the cameras and stare at him on the camera until his screen goes away. For Vision Chica, she'll randomly appear on one of the cameras and you must get off the camera to avoid it from being disabled by her. For Vision Foxy, he'll run down one of the hallways, which will be cued by him humming, look on the camera for which hallway it is, and then flash the respective door he's coming from. Then on night 5, everything changes up where Golden Freddy, aka Yellow Bear, replaces the Vision animatronics, and Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie replace Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. All the while, a new face gets added, that being Corpse. He's just another character who gets sent away with a cassette tape. There's also the custom night exclusive characters. There's Ben, who will take a picture of you to blind you if you don't move left and right. There's Bite, who will move if the cassette tape is being played. There's Stan, who you must use bug spray on to deter him. And there's Bunny, who will distract you by talking non-stop and you make her go away by clicking on her nose. One interesting character. With the gameplay of the main nights explained, let's talk about it. In my personal opinion, the gameplay in this game is actually pretty enjoyable. The gameplay loop is honestly pretty fun because of how much it has you doing. It reminds me of the best part of FNAF 2's gameplay, where the chaos that ensues later on puts you into a strategic mode that's always on the edge of your seat, especially on night 5 and custom night, where they're basically aggressive. The gameplay can actually be pretty challenging, and the challenge increases as the game goes on, which is usually a good part with every good FNAF game and fangame. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that I do not think the first couple nights are boring. Why is this worth noting? Well, a common complaint made with a lot of the since-survived FNAF fangames, especially seen with FNAF 1, is that the first 2 nights or so are boring in terms of gameplay because of how slow it can be, especially if you've played the game before. However, I don't think that's the case with this game because of how they do the FNAF 3 night 1 trick where the night doesn't last that long, and on top of that, they kind of just throw you in, but it's not in a distracting way. No, it's all a tone-related way, which is nice. Another thing with the gameplay I like is how well it does trial and error. It serves to give the player experience while playing and helps the player form strategies which makes them more immersed within the game. It's pretty neat. You mess up with a character? Well, you'll find out almost right away next time how they work and you can deter them. While still on the topic of gameplay, I respect how the music box is in this game. First off, you don't have to hold it, you can just click it and it'll wind by itself, which is way less tedious than how it's used in FNAF 2. As well, the gameplay isn't extremely dependent on the music box either, unlike again, FNAF 2. The music box mechanic in FNAF Fangames is definitely overused, I will admit that, but I'll also say this fangame is one of those ones that I think actually handles the mechanic well. It fits alongside the other gameplay mechanics and doesn't feel like it's shoved in because they felt like they needed a music box. If you're gonna have an overused and done to death mechanic in your FNAF Fangame, at least have it go well with the other gameplay and not have it feel like it's a check on a checklist. However, what I believe to be the best aspect about the gameplay in this game is the cassette tape. Why? Well, you know how it runs out if it's used too much, right? Well, what I love about that is it doesn't tell you how much you used it. It doesn't tell you how much there is left. It installs some fear, paranoia, and panic in the player, especially when they're near the end of the night, because they're going to be wondering how much of it is wasted. That is something this game does absolutely right, and it's a pretty underrated aspect of the game for what I think is the best part of the gameplay. Hell, by night 5, it's basically putting your resource management skills to the test with a cassette tape, resulting in another reason why the night is such a good and fun night to play and serves as an enjoyable culmination of events, or boss night, if you will. One other thing I have to say about the gameplay is that I respect how the other cameras get utilized. Sure, the music box cameras and hallways are utilized the most due to him and Foxy, but Bonnie has you looking at other cameras to find him, and the same can be said with Chica in a way, how you have to be careful when looking at the cameras. A common issue that a lot of FNAF official games and Fangames run into is having cameras not utilized that much in the gameplay outside of one purpose. FNAF 2 is especially guilty of this. However, when a FNAF game or Fangame uses the other cameras in its gameplay, it's usually a huge positive with it, and this game is no exception. It gives complete purpose to what the game gives you for survival, and therefore, it feels tight, but in a good way. That's basically what I have to say about the gameplay. In terms of visuals, they're also pretty good. In terms of the characters and their models, I like how some of them are interpreted, especially Cake Bear for him. That one especially is really cool. I also just enjoy characters like Stan, who just have cool as hell looking models and character design. It's kind of silly to have a spider animatronic in a Fredbear's location, but so is the whole fucking character of Bunny, so oh well. The textures on a lot of these characters are pretty good too, and there isn't much wrong with the models, at least from an obvious point of view. It's not just the character designs and models though. The whole location of Fredbear's is so damn cool. This is a Fredbear's location I like the map of because of how much there is. There's a decent amount to explore within the cameras to take note of the establishment, which is pretty cool. The atmosphere, while not terrifying, still has charm to it, which I respect a lot. The post-night minigames are pretty cool and quaint too. They're neat to play as somewhat of a quick break from all the action. Now with all this positivity, I do have some criticisms. One of those being that I feel like the horror could be better implemented, as in I wish more could be done. I would do more to make the animatronics more creepy in their camera poses, or I would help increase the levels of tension in the game's creepy atmosphere. Maybe more could be put in the sound design. The sound design's already decent, but there could be more to make it better. Another critique I have is that I think the lore could have been better presented, so there would be more of a reason for the player to explore it. It's a flaw many fan games have, and it's a shame because I can see the interesting lore. It just needs more spotlight a bit so people can take note. I will say though that the focus more on gameplay over lore is definitely a great choice and is always the correct way to go about making games like this. But if you introduce lore, there should still be more clues or something to the puzzle. As well, the only other thing I will say is that this game doesn't do anything that standoutish. Outside of the character of Bunny that has caused an uproar online, there really isn't anything that makes this game super special. It's a pretty good game, yeah, and it's one of the better Fredbear fan games, but I don't know, could be more I guess. That's most of what I have to say about the game. There's one part about the game I haven't even mentioned yet. That part of the game being Night 6. Night 6, in all fairness, is a comedic joke night, but is also meant to be a callback to the original version of the game, which is a pretty neat callback. But man, this night was actually hilarious, but in a good way. I love the juxtaposition from serious nights to a more comical one. It's a good breather from all the possible stress and challenge that was the main gameplay. The models and environments are weird and quirky, the gameplay's a hot mess, but it's all funny and intentional, so it's a positive within the game. It got a huge laugh out of me, and it was something that I didn't expect from the game when initially playing. The only other thing I have to say about this game is that I think Bunny's hilarious, I'm sorry. Shit started on FNAF Twitter over her, and honestly it's whatever. She caught me so off guard that she's a funny character. Even with that, this game is still pretty enjoyable. Five Nights to Remember is a FNAF fangame that takes use of the Fredbear fangame genre and runs with it, and dare I say, does a good job at it. Five Nights to Remember is a good FNAF fangame. I enjoyed it a lot. Even with some of the criticisms I have, it still has a lot of qualities about it that makes it such a fun experience, both serious and comedic. The gameplay is engaging, the character designs are great, the environments are solid, Night 6 is hilarious. All around, a pretty solid game. I'm gonna go on a huge limb and say that I think this game is the Return of the Bloody Knights done right. The Return of the Bloody Knights tried to do the same thing as this game with nearly every aspect, but the gameplay didn't stick with me because the gameplay loop felt very clunky and jumbled together, whereas with this game, the gameplay is well tight. In terms of Fredbear fangames that try to have the formula of FNAF's true gameplay, this game's the winner of that. This game is a winner that I recommend for you all to check out. Radiance has made other games such as the 2020 remake to Find at Treasure Island, Oblivious Casa, Find at Chuck E. Cheese Rebooted, and more to come. And they usually have a pretty good fangame output when it comes to quality. And this game is no exception.